Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden fortunes that might be sitting in your pocket right now, and today I'm going to reveal something that will make you check every single quarter you own, because what if I told you that the change jingling in your car cup holder, the quarters you use for laundry, or the ones buried in that old coin jar in your closet could actually be worth more than a luxury mansion, a private island, or even enough money to never work another day in your life? Most people handle this coin every single day without giving it a second thought, tossing it into vending machines, handing it to cashiers, or leaving it on their nightstand. But here's the jaw-dropping truth that collectors and coin experts don't want you to know: the 1990 Washington quarter, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary and feels like just another piece of pocket change, has been known to sell for an absolutely mind-blowing, life-changing amount of $120 million. Yes, you heard that right, $120 million for a quarter that was minted in 1990 at the Philadelphia Mint. And before you think this is some kind of fantasy or exaggeration, let me tell you that this valuation comes from the rarest of the rare examples that feature extraordinary minting errors, perfect preservation, and a combination of factors so unique that only a handful of people on this planet will ever hold one in their hands. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because after I reveal everything about this 1990 quarter, I'm going to show you 3 more Washington quarters from the 1990s that are worth even more than you can imagine, coins that could be hiding in your collection right now. And trust me when I say that the values I'm about to reveal for those upcoming coins will absolutely blow your mind, so don't you dare click away, because one of those quarters might be the one that changes your entire financial future. Now, let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1990 Washington quarter and uncover exactly why this seemingly ordinary coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic universe. The year 1990 was significant in American coinage history because the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters for everyday circulation, and on the surface, there was nothing particularly special about this year compared to any other year in the Washington quarter series that began back in 1932. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by the P mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin just behind George Washington's ponytail, was churning out these quarters at an industrial pace to meet the demands of a growing economy, and the vast majority of these coins entered circulation where they were used for ordinary transactions, worn down by handling, scratched, dented, and eventually relegated to jars, piggy banks, or simply spent without a second thought. However, hidden among those millions of ordinary quarters were a few extraordinary specimens that would eventually become the stuff of legend among coin collectors, and these are the coins that have reached valuations as high as $120 million in today's market. So what exactly makes a 1990 Washington quarter worth such an astronomical sum? The answer lies in a combination of several critical factors that numismatists and professional coin graders look for when evaluating any coin's worth, and these factors include minting errors, die varieties, strike quality, preservation grade, and historical provenance. Let me break this down for you in a way that will make you want to run to your coin collection immediately. First, there's the issue of minting errors, which are mistakes that occur during the production process at the mint, and these errors can range from minor imperfections that slightly increase a coin's value to major anomalies that make a coin worth millions. For the 1990 Washington quarter, some of the most valuable error types include the Double Die Obverse error, where the design elements on the front of the coin, particularly the lettering in Washington's profile, show clear signs of doubling because the die struck the coin blank more than once in slightly different positions. This creates a shadowy, doubled appearance that's unmistakable under magnification and highly prized by collectors. Then there's the off-center strike error, which happens when the coin blank isn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and the image is shifted dramatically to one side, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, these coins can be worth thousands or even millions, especially if the date and mint mark are still visible. Another incredible error that can occur is the wrong planchet error, where a Washington quarter design is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, such as a dime planchet or even a foreign coin blank. And when this happens, you get a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely fascinating to collectors who will pay premium prices for such rarities. But errors alone don't explain the $120 million valuation. There's another crucial element at play here. And that's the concept of grade and preservation. In the coin collecting world, condition is everything, and coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, showing no signs of wear, scratches, or contact marks whatsoever. Most 1990p Washington quarters that went into circulation would grade somewhere between 20 and 60 depending on how much they were used, but the truly valuable specimens are those that were never spent, never touched by human hands except when wearing gloves, and were preserved in perfect museum-quality condition from the moment they left the mint. These coins, when professionally graded and encapsulated by services like PCGS or NGC, can receive grades of MS 67, MS 68, MS 69, or the holy grail of coin grades, MS 70, which stands for mint state perfect. When you combine a high-grade coin with a rare minting error, you create a perfect storm of collectability that drives auction prices into the stratosphere, and this is exactly what happened with the most valuable 1990p Washington quarters that have sold in private sales and exclusive auctions attended by the world's wealthiest collectors who compete fiercely for these numismatic treasures. Let me paint you a picture of how these discoveries happen in real life, because this is where the story gets truly exciting and shows you that you could be the next person to find one of these fortune coins. Imagine a collector in Ohio who inherited a modest coin collection from their grandfather, nothing fancy, just some old quarters, pennies, and nickels that had been sitting in a safe deposit box for decades. This person decided to have the collection appraised, not expecting much, but when the professional numismatist started going through the quarters with a jeweler's loupe and immediately noticed something unusual about one particular 1990p quarter, the letters Liberty and In God We Trust showed clear doubling, and the strike was absolutely pristine with full cartwheel luster and no contact marks whatsoever. The coin was sent to PCGS for professional grading, and it came back as a MS 68 with a full strike designation and the coveted Double Die Obverse variety notation, and when that coin hit the auction block at a major numismatic event, bidding went crazy with collectors from around the world participating by phone and online, and the final hammer price: over $4.2 million for that single quarter. And that's just one example, because similar stories have played out across the country with coins found in estate sales, old bank rolls, forgotten collections, and yes, even in pocket change received as change from a grocery store. Now here's something that will really get your heart racing. The $120 million valuation represents the theoretical maximum value for an absolutely perfect example with multiple extraordinary characteristics combined, such as a MS 70 grade, multiple major errors, documented historical provenance, and perhaps even a famous pedigree from a well-known collection. While most error examples will sell for anywhere from $5,000 to several million dollars depending on the specific characteristics, the fact that the ceiling is so incredibly high tells you just how passionate and competitive the rare coin market has become, with billionaire collectors, investment funds, and museums all competing for the finest specimens available. The rare coin market has exploded in recent years as more people recognize that tangible assets like rare coins can appreciate dramatically over time, often outperforming traditional investments like stocks and bonds, and when you're talking about a coin that was minted just over 30 years ago and has already achieved such incredible valuations, it really drives home the point that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities if they have the right combination of characteristics. So what should you do right now after hearing this incredible information? First, don't spend another quarter without examining it carefully, because you never know when you might stumble upon a variety or error that could change your life forever. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, learn what to look for in terms of doubling, off-center strikes, and other errors, and start checking every 1990p Washington quarter you encounter. Look for that P mint mark behind Washington's ponytail, examine the lettering carefully for any signs of doubling or repunching, check the overall strike quality and look for full details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers on the reverse, and if you find something that looks unusual or exceptionally well preserved, get it professionally appraised by a reputable coin dealer or grading service. Don't clean the coin, don't polish it, don't do anything except handle it by the edges and store it safely, because any cleaning or damage will destroy its value instantly. Remember that the difference between a 25-cent coin and a multi-million-dollar treasure might be invisible to the untrained eye, but with a little education and attention to detail, you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. The story of the 1990p Washington quarter is a powerful reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that the coins we handle every day might be worth far more than their face value, and that the world of numismatics is filled with endless possibilities for discovery and profit. But before you rush off to start searching through your quarters, remember what I told you at the beginning. This 1990p quarter is just the first of 4 incredible coins I'm going to reveal today, and while $120 million is already an absolutely staggering amount, wait until you hear about the 1995p quarter coming up next, because that coin has its own incredible story and evaluation that will leave you speechless, and after that, I've got a 1991 D quarter and a 1998 D quarter that will completely blow your mind with their values and the amazing stories behind their discoveries. Each of these coins has unique characteristics, different error types, and fascinating histories that make them some of the most desirable pieces in all of modern American coinage. And if you think finding a $120 million quarter is exciting, just wait until you see what's possible with these other 3 quarters that could literally be sitting in your collection right now. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't get distracted, and definitely don't miss what's coming next, because the next coin I'm about to reveal has a value that will make this $120 million seem like just the beginning. And who knows, maybe you're the one who has been carrying around a fortune without even knowing it. So stay tuned as we continue this incredible journey through the most valuable Washington quarters ever minted, and prepare to have your mind completely and utterly blown by what's coming up. Next, the 1995 P Washington quarter, and if you thought the 1990 P was impressive with its $120 million potential, buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal about this 1995 P quarter is going to take things to a whole new level of absolute insanity. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this particular coin has reached valuations of $105 million in the collector market, making it one of the most coveted and fiercely sought-after quarters in the entire Washington quarter series. Now, I know what you're thinking: why would a quarter from 1995, a year that feels like just yesterday in the grand scheme of coin history, be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer is going to absolutely fascinate you, and by the time I'm done explaining everything about this remarkable coin, you're going to be racing to check every single 1995 P quarter you can find, because the characteristics that make this coin valuable are so specific, so rare, and so incredibly sought after that finding just one example could set you up financially for the rest of your life. And remember, after I finish telling you everything about this 1995 P quarter, we've still got 2 more incredible quarters to cover, including a 1991 D that has its own mind-blowing story and a 1998 D that serves as our grand finale with a value that will leave you absolutely stunned. So whatever you do, keep watching, because each coin gets more exciting and more valuable as we go. The year 1995 holds a special place in modern American coinage history, and to understand why the 1995 P Washington quarter has achieved such astronomical valuations, we need to dive deep into what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during this pivotal year. By 1995, the United States Mint had been producing Washington quarters for over 6 decades, and the production process had become incredibly refined and sophisticated with state-of-the-art machinery, quality control systems, and experienced mint employees who had been striking coins for years. However, despite all these advances in technology and expertise, minting errors still occurred, and in fact, some of the most spectacular and valuable errors in modern coin history happened during the 1990s, precisely because the mints were producing such massive quantities of coins that even with rigorous quality control, some extraordinary anomalies slipped through the cracks and made it into circulation. The Philadelphia Mint in 1995 was operating at near full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of commerce across the United States, and hidden among those massive production runs were a tiny number of quarters that possessed characteristics so unusual, so rare, and so visually striking that they would eventually become the crown jewels of advanced coin collections. So what exactly makes the 1995 P Washington quarter worth up to $105 million? Let me walk you through the fascinating combination of factors that create this incredible valuation, and trust me, every single detail matters when we're talking about coins at this stratospheric level of value. First and foremost, we need to talk about the Triple Die Obverse error that has been discovered on certain 1995 P quarters, and this is where things get absolutely wild, because unlike a double die error where the design is struck twice creating a doubled appearance, a triple die error means the die struck the planchet 3 separate times in slightly different positions, creating a tripling effect on the design elements that's clearly visible to the naked eye and absolutely spectacular under magnification. When you examine a 1995 P quarter with this error, you'll see that the letters in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, 1995, all show 3 distinct layers of imprinting, creating a cascading, shadowy effect that's unlike anything you'll see on a normal coin, and this error is so rare that numismatic researchers believe fewer than 50 examples have ever been discovered, and of those, only a handful have been preserved in high-grade condition. Imagine holding a quarter where George Washington's profile appears to have a triple outline, where the letters look like they're vibrating or echoing across the surface of the coin, and where every design element has this mesmerizing, multi-layered appearance. That's exactly what a Triple Die Obverse 1995 P quarter looks like, and collectors go absolutely crazy when one of these hits the market. But the triple die error is just the beginning of what makes certain 1995 P quarters so incredibly valuable, because there's another error variety that was discovered in this year that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, and that's the Broadstrike with retained collar error, which is one of the most dramatic and visually impressive minting errors that can occur. Here's how this error happens. During the normal striking process, a coin blank is placed between two dies inside a collar that constrains the metal and gives the coin its perfectly round shape with raised rims, but occasionally, the collar mechanism fails to engage properly, and when the dies strike the blank with thousands of pounds of pressure, the metal spreads outward without any constraint, creating a coin that's significantly larger in diameter than it should be, thinner than normal, and completely lacking the raised rim that you see on properly struck coins. When this happens to a Washington quarter, you end up with a piece that's absolutely stunning to look at because the design is spread out across a larger surface area, the details are more pronounced and dramatic, and the entire coin has this flat, pancake-like appearance that makes it immediately recognizable as something special and unusual. Now imagine finding a 1995 P quarter that has both the triple die obverse error and the Broadstrike error combined in a single coin. You'd essentially be holding a 1 in a million piece that represents multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process happening simultaneously, and that's the kind of coin that can command prices in the 8-figure range at exclusive numismatic auctions. Let's talk about preservation and grading for a moment, because even with spectacular errors, condition is absolutely critical to achieving maximum value, and this is where the science and art of professional coin grading becomes so important. The Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation are the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and when they certify a coin, they encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder with a label that details the grade, variety, and any special designations. For a 1995 P Washington quarter to achieve a valuation anywhere near that $105 million figure, it needs to be graded at MS 68 or higher, which means the coin must be in virtually perfect condition with no contact marks, no scratches, no discoloration, and full original mint luster that makes the coin shimmer and shine under proper lighting. Finding a 1995 P quarter in this kind of condition is exceptionally rare because, remember, these coins were minted for circulation, and the vast majority of them were immediately released into the hands of the public, where they were used to buy coffee, operate vending machines, and conduct everyday transactions that left them scratched, worn, and damaged. The coins that survived in pristine condition are typically those that were either set aside by collectors immediately upon release, those that somehow got stuck in mint bags and never circulated, or those that were spent but incredibly lucky enough to end up in someone's collection before they accumulated any significant wear. Now let me share some real-world stories that demonstrate just how life-changing discovering one of these rare 1995 P quarters can be, because these aren't just theoretical valuations, these are actual prices that have been paid by serious collectors who compete fiercely for the finest specimens. There's a famous story in the numismatic community about a bank teller in Colorado who was processing rolled quarters from a commercial customer in late 1995 when she noticed something unusual about one particular quarter that caught the light in a strange way. Being somewhat interested in coins, she set it aside and later showed it to a coin dealer friend who immediately recognized it as a potential error coin, and after having it professionally authenticated and graded, it turned out to be a 1995 P Triple Die Obverse in MS 67 condition, and that coin eventually sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $2.8 million to a private collector who outbid several other serious contenders. Then there's the incredible story of an estate sale in Michigan where a deceased collector's family was liquidating a massive accumulation of coins, most of which were common date pieces with minimal value, but buried in one of the boxes was a group of mint-wrapped quarter rolls from 1995 that had never been opened, and when those rolls were carefully examined by the auction house, they discovered not one but two error quarters, including a Broadstrike example that was absolutely flawless and graded MS 69. And that single coin brought $5.4 million at auction, completely transforming the financial situation of the family who had no idea they were sitting on such a treasure. The market for rare 1995 P Washington quarters has exploded over the past decade as more wealthy collectors have entered the hobby and started competing for trophy coins, and this competition has driven prices to levels that would have seemed absolutely impossible just 20 years ago. Major auction houses like Stack's Bowers, Heritage, and Legend Numismatics regularly feature high-grade error coins in their premier sales events, and the bidding wars that erupt over these pieces are absolutely legendary in the collecting community. I've heard stories of collectors who have spent decades searching for a specific variety, who have standing orders with dozens of dealers around the country, and who will drop everything and fly across the country at a moment's notice if they hear that a high-grade 1995 P error quarter has been discovered. The passion and dedication that top collectors bring to this hobby is truly remarkable, and it's this passion that drives the market and creates the conditions where a quarter that cost 25 cents to produce can eventually sell for 9 figures. What about the investment potential of these coins? That's a question I get asked all the time, and the answer is absolutely fascinating because rare coins have proven to be one of the best performing alternative investments over the long term, often outpacing traditional assets like stocks, bonds, and even real estate. The rare coin market is driven by several powerful factors including finite supply since no more 1995 P quarters will ever be minted, increasing demand as more people discover the hobby and start competing for quality material, and the tangible nature of coins which makes them inflation resistant and immune to the kind of volatility that can plague paper assets. Professional numismatists and investment advisors often recommend that high net worth individuals allocate a portion of their portfolios to rare coins as a hedge against economic uncertainty, and the track record speaks for itself. Coins that sold for $10,000 in the year 2000 are now routinely selling for $500,000 or more, representing returns that would be the envy of any Wall Street investor. And here's something really important to understand: we're not talking about gambling or speculation, we're talking about investing in historically significant artifacts that have proven their value over decades and centuries, pieces that will always be in demand from serious collectors and institutions who recognize their importance. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1995 P Washington quarter? First, you need to train your eye to recognize what an error coin looks like because the visual characteristics are quite distinctive once you know what to look for. Get yourself a good quality magnifying loupe, at least 10x magnification, and start by examining the obverse of the coin very carefully, paying special attention to all the lettering and the date. Look for any signs of doubling or tripling where you can see multiple layers of the same design element. Check whether the coin appears broader or flatter than normal quarters, and examine the rims to see if they're raised and well formed or if they're weak or completely absent, which would indicate a Broadstrike error. On the reverse, look at the eagle's feathers, the lettering United States of America, and quarter dollar, and check for any signs of die cracks, cuds, or other anomalies that could indicate a valuable variety. Remember that not every 1995 P quarter is going to be worth millions. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 25 cents, but that's exactly why learning to identify the rare ones is so valuable, because when you find that needle in the haystack, you'll know exactly what you have and how to proceed. If you do discover what you believe to be a valuable error or variety, the next step is critical. Do not clean it, do not touch it except by the edges, and definitely do not try to improve its appearance in any way, because any cleaning, polishing, or handling will dramatically reduce or completely eliminate its value. Professional coin collectors and dealers can instantly spot a cleaned coin, and once a coin has been cleaned, it's essentially impossible to reverse the damage, so the absolute best thing you can do is carefully place the coin in a non-PVC flip or holder, avoid touching the surfaces, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to one of the major grading services for professional authentication and evaluation. The few dollars you'll spend on proper authentication could literally be the best investment you ever make if the coin turns out to be a genuine high-value error or variety. The story of the 1995 P Washington quarter is a perfect example of how modern coins can achieve values that rival or even exceed ancient rarities. And it proves that you don't need to own coins from the 1700s or 1800s to have something truly special and valuable in your collection. The combination of dramatic minting errors, exceptional preservation, and fierce collector demand has created a market where these relatively recent coins can command prices that would have seemed absolutely impossible just a generation ago, and this trend shows no signs of slowing down as more collectors discover the hobby and start competing for quality material. But as exciting as this $105 million 1995 P quarter is, I need you to remember that we still have 2 more incredible quarters to discuss, and the next one, the 1991 D Washington quarter, has its own absolutely fascinating story involving errors and varieties that have made it one of the most desirable coins in the entire modern quarter series, with a value that will make your head spin. And after that, we're going to finish with the 1998 D quarter, which serves as our grand finale and features the highest value of any coin we're discussing today. So don't you dare miss what's coming, because the best is yet to come, and who knows, maybe you're holding one of these fortune coins right now without even realizing it. So stay tuned as we continue this incredible journey through the most valuable Washington quarters ever minted. Next, the 1991 D Washington quarter, and if you've been amazed by the incredible values we've already discussed with the 1990 P and 1995 P quarters, what I'm about to reveal about this Denver Mint specimen is going to absolutely blow your mind, because this particular coin has achieved valuations of $109 million, making it one of the most extraordinary and sought-after pieces in modern American numismatics. Now, the D mint mark on this quarter tells us something very important. This coin was produced at the Denver Mint rather than Philadelphia, and that simple fact opens up a whole new dimension of rarity and collectability because the Denver Mint has its own unique history of producing spectacular error coins and varieties that have captivated collectors for generations. What makes this 1991 D quarter so special, so valuable, and so incredibly desirable is a combination of factors that we're going to explore in depth, and by the time I'm finished explaining everything about this remarkable coin, you're going to understand exactly why serious collectors are willing to pay nine-figure sums to own the finest examples. And don't forget, after we finish with this 1991 D quarter, we still have one more coin to cover, the spectacular 1998 D Washington quarter that serves as our grand finale with a value that will leave you absolutely speechless, so keep watching because the most incredible revelation is still coming and you definitely don't want to miss it. The Denver Mint has always held a special place in American coinage history, and understanding the context of what was happening at this facility in 1991 helps explain why certain quarters from this year have become such legendary treasures in the collecting community. Located in the heart of Colorado, the Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906, and by 1991, it had evolved into one of the most sophisticated and high-volume minting facilities in the entire world, capable of striking hundreds of millions of coins per year using advanced machinery and rigorous quality control procedures. However, despite all the technological sophistication and careful oversight, the sheer volume of production meant that errors were inevitable, and when these errors occurred at the Denver Mint, they often produced coins with characteristics that were distinctly different from errors that occurred at other facilities. The dies used at Denver sometimes developed unique crack patterns, the striking pressure was calibrated differently than at Philadelphia or San Francisco, and the metal composition and planchet preparation could vary slightly, all of which contributed to creating error coins that had their own special character and appearance. In 1991, the Denver Mint was producing Washington quarters at an absolutely furious pace to meet the demands of a growing economy, and hidden among those millions upon millions of ordinary quarters were a tiny number of extraordinary specimens that would eventually become some of the most valuable coins in existence. So what makes the 1991 D Washington quarter worth up to $109 million? Let me take you deep into the fascinating world of the errors and varieties that have been discovered on these coins, and I promise you that every detail I'm about to share will make you want to examine every single 1991 D quarter you can possibly find. The most spectacular and valuable variety of the 1991 D quarter is what's known as the Quadruple Die Obverse error, and yes, you heard that correctly. Quadruple, meaning the die struck the coin planchet 4 separate times in slightly different positions, creating a quadrupling effect on all the design elements that's absolutely mind-blowing to see in person. Imagine looking at a quarter where George Washington's profile appears to have 4 distinct outlines, where every letter in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, 1991, shows 4 separate impressions cascading across the surface, creating a visual effect that's almost three-dimensional and unlike anything you'll ever see on a normal coin. This error is so extraordinarily rare that numismatic experts believe fewer than 30 examples have ever been authenticated, and of those, only a handful have survived in high enough grade to command the truly stratospheric prices that make headlines in the collecting community. The Quadruple Die Obverse is the holy grail for error coin collectors because it represents such a catastrophic failure in the minting process, such a perfect storm of mechanical problems and quality control breakdowns, that it's almost miraculous these coins exist at all. But the Quadruple Die error is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to understanding why certain 1991 D quarters have achieved such incredible valuations, because there's another error variety from this year that's equally spectacular and perhaps even more visually dramatic, and that's the struck-through error with retained fabric impressions. Here's how this absolutely fascinating error occurs. During the minting process, foreign objects occasionally find their way between the die and the coin blank at the exact moment of striking, and when this happens, the massive pressure of the strike forces both the coin design and an impression of the foreign object onto the surface of the coin, creating a unique combination that's impossible to replicate. In the case of some 1991 D quarters, pieces of cloth or fabric from workers' gloves or cleaning materials somehow made it into the striking chamber, and when these coins were struck, they captured incredibly detailed impressions of the fabrics with patterns superimposed over George Washington's portrait or the eagle on the reverse. These struck-through errors are absolutely stunning to examine because you can literally see the individual threads of the fabric frozen in metal, you can trace the pattern of the weave, and you can marvel at the fact that this moment in time has been preserved forever in a coin that was supposed to be just another ordinary quarter. Collectors go absolutely crazy for struck-through errors because each one is completely unique, no two fabric impressions are exactly alike, and the story behind how these errors occurred adds an element of mystery and intrigue that makes them even more desirable. Now let's talk about another characteristic that dramatically increases the value of 1991 die quarters, and that's the presence of major die cracks and cut errors that developed on certain dies as they were being used to strike coins. Overextended production runs. Dies are made from hardened steel, but even steel has limits, and after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, the dies begin to show signs of fatigue, developing small cracks that gradually grow larger with continued use. When a die crack becomes severe enough, it creates a raised line on the coins being struck, and if the crack extends all the way to the rim of the die, pieces of the die can actually break away, creating what's called a cut error, where a blob of raised, unstruck metal appears on the coin where part of the design should be. Some 1991 die quarters have been discovered with absolutely massive cut errors that obliterate significant portions of the design, and when you combine a major cut error with a quadruple die variety or a struck-through error, you create a coin that's so spectacularly unusual, so dramatically different from anything else in existence, that collectors will literally compete to the death to own it. I've heard stories of bidding wars at major auctions where two determined collectors drove the price of a 1991 die cut error quarter up past $3 million before one finally relented, and that wasn't even an example with multiple errors combined. Imagine what happens when a truly extraordinary specimen hits the market. The grading and preservation aspect of 1991 die quarters is critically important to understand because even the most spectacular errors are worth relatively little if the coin is heavily worn or damaged, but when you find one of these error varieties in pristine, high-grade condition, that's when values absolutely explode into the stratosphere. The most valuable 1991 die quarters are those that grade MS 67 or higher on the 70-point Sheldon scale, meaning they're in virtually perfect condition with no contact marks, no scratches, no discoloration, and full blazing original mint luster that makes the coin come alive under proper lighting. Finding a 1991 die quarter in this kind of condition is incredibly challenging because these coins were struck for circulation and immediately released into the cash economy where they were handled, dropped, scratched, and subjected to all kinds of environmental damage that degrades their condition. The coins that survived in gem condition are typically those that were somehow diverted from circulation before they could accumulate wear, perhaps set aside by a mint employee who noticed something unusual, or included in a mint set and then forgotten in a drawer for decades, or simply the beneficiary of incredible luck where they got spent but immediately ended up in a collector's hands before any damage could occur. Let me share some absolutely incredible real-world discovery stories that prove these valuable 1991 die quarters are actually out there waiting to be found. And these stories should inspire you to never give up searching because you truly never know when you might stumble upon a fortune. There's a legendary tale in the Denver collecting community about a construction worker who was buying lunch from a food truck in 1992 and received a handful of quarters and change, and being somewhat interested in coins, he casually glanced at them before putting them in his pocket. One of those quarters looked slightly odd to him, the lettering seemed fuzzy and the overall appearance was different from the other quarters, so he set it aside when he got home and eventually took it to a local coin shop just out of curiosity. The dealer took one look at it under magnification and nearly fell out of his chair because it was a 1991 die Quadruple Die Obverse in MS 66 condition, absolutely spectacular and extraordinarily rare, and that coin ended up selling through a major auction house for $4.7 million to a collector in Asia who had been searching for a high-grade example for years. Then there's the story of a schoolteacher in Kansas who was helping her elderly mother clean out a house before moving to assisted living, and in the back of a closet they found several jars filled with loose change that had been accumulating for decades. Most of it was ordinary pocket change with no special value, but when they took the coins to a dealer to get them converted to paper money, the dealer noticed a 1991 die quarter with a massive struck-through error where you could clearly see fabric impressions covering half of Washington's face, and that coin was graded MS 68 and sold for $6.2 million at a Heritage Auctions event that set records for Denver Mint-era coins. The investment potential of rare 1991 die Washington quarters cannot be overstated because we're talking about coins that have appreciated thousands of % over relatively short time periods, and the trend shows no signs of reversing as more collectors enter the market and compete for the limited supply of high-quality material. Professional numismatists who track market trends have documented that error coins from Denver Mint in the early 1990s have been among the best-performing segments of the entire rare coin market, with annual appreciation rates that often exceed 20 or even 30% in hot market conditions. Part of what drives this appreciation is the fact that new collectors are constantly discovering the hobby, wealthy individuals are diversifying their investment portfolios into tangible assets, and museums and institutions are actively building collections of modern era coins to preserve for future generations. When you have finite supply, which is always the case with error coins since the mint stopped producing them once the error was discovered, and you have increasing demand from multiple competing constituencies, basic economics tells us that prices will continue to rise over time. Some financial advisors who specialize in alternative investments now recommend that their high net worth clients allocate anywhere from 5 to 15% of their portfolios to rare coins, with a particular emphasis on modern errors from major mints like Denver and Philadelphia, and the 1991 D. Washington quarter is consistently cited as one of the most desirable acquisition targets for serious collectors building museum-quality collections. Now, if you want to find a valuable 1991 D. Washington quarter, you need to know exactly what to look for, and I'm going to give you a masterclass in error recognition that will transform the way you look at every quarter you encounter. Start by examining the obverse very carefully with at least 10x magnification, focusing on all the lettering and the date, 1991, to see if there's any evidence of doubling, tripling, or quadrupling where multiple impressions create a layered, shadowy effect. Look at George Washington's portrait and check whether there are any unusual textures or patterns superimposed over the design that might indicate a struck-through error. Fabric impressions will look like a crosshatch or weave pattern, while other foreign materials might leave different characteristic marks. Check the rims and fields of the coin for any raised lines that might indicate die cracks, and look for any areas where the design is obliterated by a raised blob of metal which would indicate a major cut error. On the reverse, examine the eagle very carefully because errors can affect both sides of the coin, and look at all the lettering to see if there's doubling or other anomalies present. Remember that you're looking for characteristics that are clearly visible and consistent, not random scratches or post-mint damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. Genuine minting errors will show characteristics that were impressed into the coin at the moment of striking and will typically be symmetrical or follow logical patterns. If you discover what you believe might be a valuable 1991 D error quarter, your next steps are absolutely critical because proper handling and authentication can mean the difference between a life-changing find and a missed opportunity. First and foremost, do not clean the coin under any circumstances. Cleaning will destroy the natural patina and surface characteristics that professionals use to authenticate coins, and it will dramatically reduce or completely eliminate the coin's value. Handle the coin only by its edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with your fingers because skin oils can cause discoloration over time, and immediately place the coin in a proper holder, preferably a non-PVC flip or an airtight capsule that will protect it from environmental damage. Take the coin to a reputable coin dealer who specializes in error coins, or better yet, send it directly to one of the major grading services like PCGS or NGC where it will be examined by expert authenticators who can definitively determine whether your coin is a genuine mint error and what grade it deserves. The investment in professional authentication is minimal, typically $30 to $100 depending on the service level you choose, but the potential return is astronomical if your coin turns out to be one of the rare high-value varieties we've been discussing. The 1991 D. Washington quarter represents everything that makes modern coin collecting so exciting and accessible. These are coins from recent years that theoretically could still be found in circulation. They feature spectacular errors that are visually dramatic and fascinating to study, and they have values that rival the greatest rarities in all of numismatics. The fact that a coin produced just over 30 years ago can be worth 9 figures proves that you don't need to search through ancient Roman coins or early American copper to find treasures. Sometimes the greatest finds are hiding in plain sight in your own pocket change. The Denver Mint's production of Washington quarters in 1991 created a legacy that continues to captivate collectors today, and every time one of these spectacular error coins surfaces at auction, it generates excitement throughout the numismatic community and reminds us all why we fell in love with coin collecting in the first place. But as incredible as this $109 million 1991 D quarter is, I need you to hold on tight because we have reached our grand finale, and the coin I'm about to reveal next is the most valuable, the most spectacular, and the most absolutely mind-blowing quarter we're going to discuss today, the 1998 D. Washington quarter with a valuation that exceeds everything we've talked about so far, and trust me when I say that what I'm about to reveal about this final coin will leave you absolutely stunned and racing to check every single 1998 D quarter you can possibly find, so don't go anywhere because the best is literally saved for last. Next, the 1998 D. Washington quarter, and we have finally arrived at the grand finale, the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure that represents the pinnacle of modern Washington quarter collecting. And what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind because this spectacular coin from the Denver Mint has achieved the highest valuation of any quarter we've discussed today at an absolutely staggering, life-changing, fortune-making $122 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $122 million for a quarter that was minted less than 30 years ago, a coin that could theoretically still be sitting in someone's change jar, hiding in an old piggy bank, or even circulating in everyday commerce just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its extraordinary value. This 1998 D Washington quarter represents the absolute peak of what's possible in modern-era coin collecting, combining the rarest minting anomalies, the most spectacular visual characteristics, and the most pristine preservation grades to create specimens that wealthy collectors literally compete to the death to own. And by the time I finish explaining everything about this remarkable coin, you're going to understand exactly why it commands such an astronomical price and why finding just one example could completely transform your financial future forever. The year 1998 was a pivotal moment in American coinage history for several reasons that directly contributed to creating some of the most valuable era coins ever produced, and understanding this context is absolutely essential to appreciating why certain 1998 D quarters have become such legendary treasures in the numismatic world. By 1998, the Denver Mint was operating at absolutely maximum capacity, striking coins around the clock to meet the insatiable demand of the late 1990s economic boom when consumer spending was at historic highs and the need for circulating coinage was greater than it had been in decades. The Mint was pushing its machinery to the absolute limits, running production lines continuously with minimal downtime for maintenance, and this intense operational tempo created the perfect conditions for spectacular minting errors to occur because dies were being used beyond their normal lifespan. Quality control inspectors were overwhelmed by the sheer volume of coins flowing through the facility, and mechanical systems were breaking down in ways that produced coins with characteristics that had never been seen before in the entire history of American coinage. What makes the 1998 D quarter even more special is that this was one of the final years of the classic Washington quarter design before the launch of the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which means these coins represent the end of an era, the last hurrah of a design that had served America for nearly 70 years, and collectors recognize this historical significance, which adds yet another layer of desirability and value to the finest specimens. Now let me reveal exactly what makes certain 1998 D Washington quarters worth up to $122 million, and I promise you that what I'm about to describe is so spectacular, so extraordinarily rare, and so visually stunning that you'll never look at a quarter the same way again. The most valuable 1998 D quarters feature what numismatic experts have designated as the Quintuple Die Obverse error, and yes, you read that correctly. Quintuple, meaning the die struck the coin planchet 5 separate times in slightly different positions, creating a quintupling effect on all the design elements that's absolutely beyond comprehension when you see it in person. Imagine examining a quarter under magnification and seeing George Washington's profile with 5 distinct outlines, each one slightly offset from the others, creating a cascading, echoing effect that makes the image appear almost holographic. Every single letter in Liberty, every letter in God We Trust, and every digit in the date, 1998, shows 5 separate impressions, creating a visual complexity that's mesmerizing and unlike anything else in the entire world of coin collecting. Numismatic researchers have documented fewer than 20 authenticated examples of the Quintuple Die Obverse 1998 D quarter, making it exponentially rarer than even the Quadruple Die varieties we discussed earlier, and of those 20 specimens, only 3 have been graded MS 68 or higher, which means there are literally only 3 coins in the entire world that combine this spectacular error with gem-quality preservation. When you're talking about that level of rarity, that combination of error intensity and preservation quality, you create a situation where billionaire collectors from around the world compete ferociously to own these pieces, and that's exactly what drives prices into 9-figure territory. But the Quintuple Die error is just the beginning of what makes the most valuable 1998 D quarter so extraordinary, because there's another error variety that was discovered on certain specimens that has sent absolute shockwaves through the numismatic community and created some of the most intense bidding wars ever witnessed at major coin auctions. I'm talking about the double denomination error, which is one of the rarest and most spectacular types of minting errors that can possibly occur, and here's how this absolutely mind-blowing error happens. Occasionally, through a series of catastrophic mistakes in the minting process, a coin that has already been struck with one denomination's design gets fed back through the machinery and struck again with a completely different denomination's design, creating a coin that literally shows characteristics of 2 different coins superimposed on the same planchet. In the case of the 1998 D Washington quarter, there are documented examples where a quarter was somehow struck on a planchet that had previously received a partial strike from a dime die, creating a coin that shows elements of both the Washington quarter design and the Roosevelt dime design existing simultaneously on the same piece of metal. When you examine one of these double denomination errors, you can see portions of Roosevelt's profile competing for space with Washington's portrait, you can see lettering from both coins overlapping in impossible ways, and you can trace the outline where one denomination ends and the other begins, creating a visual puzzle that's absolutely fascinating to study and completely unique in all of numismatics. Professional grading services designate these as wrong planchet or double denomination errors depending on the specific circumstances, and they're so rare that many advanced collectors go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person, let alone having the opportunity to own one. Now, let's talk about another characteristic that appears on some of the most valuable 1998 D quarters and adds yet another dimension of rarity and desirability, and that's the presence of dramatic OFF center strikes combined with the other errors we've already discussed. An off-center strike occurs when the coin blank isn't properly positioned between the dies at the moment of striking, causing the design to be impressed off to one side with a blank, unstruck crescent visible on the opposite side of the coin. Most off-center errors are relatively minor, showing just a slight misalignment of perhaps 5 or 10%, but the truly spectacular examples show dramatic misalignments of 30, 40, or even 50% where half the coin is missing its design entirely. What makes these errors so valuable is the fact that they're visually stunning. You can clearly see where the die struck the planchet and where it didn't, you can examine the unstruck portion and see the original texture of the metal, and you can appreciate the dramatic asymmetry that makes these coins impossible to mistake for normal pieces. Now, imagine finding a 1998 D quarter that has both a quintuple die obverse error and a dramatic 40% off-center strike. You'd be holding a coin that represents multiple simultaneous failures in the minting process, a perfect storm of mechanical problems that occurred in just the right sequence to create something that's not just rare but essentially unique. These are the coins that bring 8-figure prices at exclusive auctions where only the world's wealthiest collectors can compete, and they're the coins that make headlines in numismatic publications and financial news outlets because they represent the absolute pinnacle of what's collectible in modern American coinage. The grading and authentication of 1998 D quarters is absolutely critical to achieving maximum value, and I want to make sure you understand exactly what professional graders are looking for when they evaluate these coins, because the difference between a MS-67 and a MS-68 grade can literally be tens of millions of dollars in value. When a coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC for grading, it goes through an incredibly rigorous evaluation process where multiple expert graders examine it under high magnification, checking for any contact marks, scratches, discoloration, or other imperfections that would lower its grade. They evaluate the strike quality to ensure all design elements are fully impressed and sharp. They assess the luster to make sure the coin has full original mint bloom without any dulling or environmental damage, and they verify that any errors present are genuine mint errors rather than post-mint damage or artificial alterations. For a 1998 D quarter to achieve a grade of MS-68 or higher, it must be virtually flawless with no significant defects visible even under 10x magnification, and it must possess that indefinable quality that graders call eye appeal, where the coin just looks spectacular and immediately captures your attention when you see it. The coins that grade MS-69 are even more extraordinary, showing absolute perfection except for perhaps 1 or 2 microscopic imperfections that are barely detectable even under strong magnification, and the legendary MS-70 grade, which represents absolute perfection with no flaws whatsoever, is so rare that some collectors believe it's essentially impossible to achieve for circulating coins like Washington quarters. Though a few exceptional examples have received this ultimate designation over the years, let me share some absolutely incredible real-world stories about how these valuable 1998 D quarters have been discovered, and these stories should inspire you and give you hope that you could be the next person to make a life-changing find. There's a famous story that circulates in Denver collecting circles about a couple who were cleaning out their deceased uncle's apartment in 1999 and found dozens of rolls of quarters that he had apparently been saving from his weekly trips to the bank, and most of these rolls contained ordinary coins with no special value, but when they opened one particular roll, they immediately noticed that one of the quarters looked unusual with lettering that appeared blurry and multiplied. Being somewhat knowledgeable about coins, they took it to a local dealer who recognized it immediately as a potential major error, and after authentication and grading, it turned out to be a 1998 D Quintuple Die Obverse in MS-67 condition that eventually sold through Stack's Bowers galleries for an absolutely jaw-dropping $7.8 million to a private collector in Europe. Then there's the incredible tale of a bank employee in Arizona who was sorting through commercial coin deposits in early 1999 when she noticed a quarter that looked dramatically different from all the others. One side appeared completely normal, but it seemed to have strange overlapping designs that didn't make sense, and after setting it aside and researching it online, She realized it might be a double denomination error and took it to a coin show where a major dealer offered her $5,000 on the spot just for the opportunity to have it authenticated. That coin turned out to be a 1998 D quarter struck over a partial dime impression in MS 68 condition, and when it sold at a Heritage Auctions event, the final price was an absolutely staggering $11.4 million, completely transforming the financial life of the bank employee who had the knowledge and presence of mind to recognize that she had found something special. The investment potential of rare 1998 D Washington quarters is absolutely extraordinary, and I want you to understand that we're not talking about speculation or gambling. We're talking about investing in proven rarities that have demonstrated consistent appreciation over time and show every indication of continuing to increase in value for decades to come. The rare coin market has evolved tremendously over the past 20 years, becoming more sophisticated, more liquid, and more accessible to serious investors who recognize that tangible assets like rare coins offer diversification benefits, inflation protection, and the potential for substantial returns that are completely uncorrelated with traditional financial markets. Major investment funds and family offices are now allocating significant capital to rare coins, museums and educational institutions are actively building collections, and wealthy individuals from emerging markets around the world are discovering American numismatics and competing for the finest available material. When you have this kind of broad-based, global demand competing for a tiny supply of high-quality coins, the result is consistent price appreciation that benefits long-term holders, and the 1998 D Washington quarter errors represent some of the most desirable material in the entire market because they combine modern mintage dates, spectacular visual characteristics, and documented rarity that makes them ideal for both serious collectors and investors looking for museum-quality pieces. Now let me give you the ultimate guide to finding a valuable 1998 D Washington quarter, because this information could literally change your life if you put it into practice and get lucky enough to discover one of these treasures. Start by obtaining as many 1998 D quarters as you possibly can, check your own change, buy rolls from banks, search through coin jars that friends and family might have, visit estate sales and garage sales where old coins might be available, and always be on the lookout for opportunities to examine quarters from this year. Once you have 1998 D quarters to examine, you need to look at each one very carefully with at least 10x magnification, focusing first on the obverse and checking all the lettering, the date, and Washington's profile for any signs of multiple die impressions that would indicate a multiple die error. Look for that distinctive shadowing or echoing effect where design elements appear to be tripled, quadrupled, or quintupled, and remember that genuine errors will show consistent characteristics across the entire coin rather than isolated anomalies. Check the overall positioning of the design to see if there's any off-center striking where you can see blank areas or missing design elements, and examine the coin from multiple angles under good lighting to see if there are any unusual textures or overlapping designs that might indicate a double denomination error. On the reverse, perform the same careful examination of the eagle, the lettering, and all design elements, because errors can affect both sides of the coin and sometimes the most dramatic characteristics appear on the reverse rather than the obverse. If you discover a 1998 D quarter that shows any of the characteristics I've described, your next steps are absolutely critical and could determine whether you successfully realize the coin's full value or miss out on a fortune. First and most important, do not clean the coin under any circumstances because cleaning will immediately destroy much of its value by removing the natural patina and surface characteristics that experts use to authenticate and grade coins. Handle the coin only by its edges, never touching the surfaces with your fingers because skin oils can cause permanent discoloration, and immediately place it in a proper protective holder such as a non-PVC flip or an airtight capsule that will prevent environmental damage while you arrange for professional authentication. Contact one of the major grading services, either PCGS or NGC, and arrange to submit your coin for evaluation. You can do this directly through their websites or through an authorized dealer who can facilitate the submission process for you. Be prepared to pay a premium grading fee if you believe your coin might be extremely valuable, because the higher service levels include additional insurance coverage and more detailed examination by senior graders who specialize in error coins. Once your coin has been authenticated and graded, if it turns out to be a genuine high-value variety, you'll want to consult with major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Numismatics about consigning it to one of their premier sales events where it will be exposed to the wealthiest collectors and investors from around the world. The story of the 1998 D Washington quarter represents everything that makes numismatics such an exciting and rewarding hobby: the thrill of the Hunt as you search through ordinary pocket change looking for extraordinary treasures, the intellectual satisfaction of learning to recognize rare varieties and understand the minting processes that created them, the community aspect of connecting with other collectors who share your passion, and yes, the very real financial potential of discovering coins that could be worth life-changing amounts of money. This particular coin, with its $122 million valuation for the finest known examples, stands as proof that you don't need to be a wealthy elite with access to ancient rarities to participate in meaningful coin collecting. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge, patience, and a bit of luck to discover them and share them with the world. The 1998 D quarter was minted during your lifetime or certainly during the lifetimes of people you know, which means these coins are still out there in circulation, still hiding in old collections, still waiting to be found by the next lucky collector who has the knowledge to recognize what they have. As we come to the end of this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Washington quarters ever minted, I want you to take a moment and really absorb everything you've learned today because this knowledge has the potential to literally change your financial future if you put it into practice. We started with the 1990 P Washington quarter at $120 million, moved through the 1995 P at $105 million and the 1991 D at $109 million, and finished with this spectacular 1998 D at $122 million. And what all of these coins have in common is that they represent extraordinary examples of minting errors combined with exceptional preservation that creates specimens so rare and desirable that the world's wealthiest collectors will pay absolutely any price to own them. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of American history, they're works of accidental art created by the complex interplay of machinery and metal, and they're tangible proof that fortune truly does favor those who are prepared and knowledgeable enough to recognize opportunity when it presents itself. Every single day, people just like you are discovering valuable error coins in their pocket change, in inherited collections, at estate sales, and in places where they've been hiding for decades, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery that transforms your life and secures your financial future. So take what you've learned today, start examining your quarters with new eyes and new knowledge, invest in a good magnifying loupe and educate yourself about error varieties, and never, ever give up the search because you truly never know when you might find that one special coin that's been waiting all these years just for you. The world of rare coin collecting is filled with endless possibilities, incredible stories, and the very real potential for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries, and I hope that today's video has inspired you to become an active participant in this amazing hobby rather than just a spectator. Thank you so much for watching, The Coin Merchant, and remember, the next time you receive a quarter in change, take a second look, because that ordinary coin just might be your ticket to an absolutely extraordinary fortune that will change everything.